Hello and welcome to the interview on France 24. I'm Robert Parsons and I'm in Kigali, Rwanda for the Ibrahim Prize for Achievement in African Leadership, awarded this year to the former Liberian president, Ellen Johnson Sirleaf. But my guest today is Mo Ibrahim himself, the Sudanese-born billionaire businessman behind the prize and the foundation that organised the high-level discussions in Kigali last weekend on good governance and public service. Mo Ibrahim, thank you very much for being with us on France 24.
Thank you very much for having me.
If I could just start by asking you a question about the venue itself, because many people have sort of semi-raised their eyebrows about it.
Why?
Clearly a political decision for you to come to Rwanda, at least in part, but why Rwanda?
I'll start by saying why not. We rotate our meetings between African capitals. We've been to almost 10 other places before this. The main criterion for selection of the capital would be if there is a difficult political situation like an election. We will not go to Kenya in the middle of the election, for example, because we don't want to be part of the controversy, etc. Or if it's a civil war, because of course the safety of our guests and our people is important. And we look at just the ease of communications. How can people travel in and out? Because we have almost 1,000 guests. Yeah. And we need to make sure that they can come in and out in orderly manner.
But I say difficult because Paul Kagame's governance presents a mixed bag for you out, so based on the categories in your index. You know, on the one hand, very successful in your terms in public service, education, healthcare. I look at Kigali, the streets are so clean, all that sort of thing. But on the other hand, if you come so short when you talk about human rights abuse, participatory democracy, rule of law, all those sort of things.
To start with, I don't think Paul Kagame is controversial or Rwanda is controversial. It is unique African countries because it has a unique history, what happened before and where we're going forward. But I think Rwanda made huge strides forward. And we talking, the main subject, the main issue of our debate here this weekend is about that very important subject, the delivery of public services. Yeah. That at the heart of governance, delivery of education, of health, of security, all these things are very important. And as you said, I mean, this country is running so well. It's incredible. How to get a visa here?
Online, but China runs pretty well as well, doesn't it? China runs pretty well as well. And one wouldn't describe it as a participatory democracy.
China has provided us with the best ever example in history in development. If a country took 500 million people out of poverty, I raise my hat to those guys.
I absolutely agree with you.
I found it very strange in the Western media when people think governance and development is also about multi-party system. Yes, I like multi-party system myself, but I appreciate that governance is a very wide issue. Hungry people, okay, people in South Sudan who are being killed and raped, and theoretically they have the right to vote. What are you going to do with that vote?
Yeah. No, I absolutely take your point, but one of the things that your foundation specifically sets out to encourage is participatory democracy and respect for human rights. Yes. And according to your own index, while Rwanda does very, very well in certain categories, in others it's right down at the bottom.
Yes, because I didn't say Rwanda is perfect, but Rwanda is moving forward at such pace that I think that's a great example. And Paul Kagame and his government, in the way they developed services in this country, educated people, I have never seen any African country as well run as this country. This is a great achievement, and people should not forget that. So what all I'm saying is, we need to have a balanced view of what's going on.
Sure.
Kagame is not perfect, Rwanda is not perfect, but we have to again raise our hats to what they have done, and we should acknowledge that. But to hang all the issues about just one element of governance, which is important. I agree with you. That's a little bit, I mean, let me ask you a question. How many liberal democracies now within the European Union? Is Hungary a democracy? Is in the heart of Europe. What you guys are doing about it? What about Poland? Okay. What about Czech?
But
what
if we were to make a comparison,
yes.
There is no comparison between Hungary and Poland and Rwanda in terms of respect for human rights.
You must be joking.
No?
You must be joking. What happening in Rwanda and Hungary today is extremely, and it taken in a social context is just incredible. And you guys cannot see that?
Okay, let's move on, because I've got a lot of other areas that I'd like to look at.
Okay, you see, I love debate, and I think everybody have the right to criticize everybody. What I don't like is hypocrisy. When Europeans start in a soapbox and start lecturing us about things without realizing that they live in a house of glass.
Sure, it's a fair point, I agree.
Okay, so let us be reasonable and objective in our discussion. And we accept we are not perfect. And what's happening in Africa, that's our fight in Africa about all these issues. And I don't know if you watched I interviewed Paul Kagame yesterday for 1 hour. And I think it was the most candid interviews he ever gave. And you saw the kind of questions put to him about his retirement, about what he's going to do afterwards, about succession. We raised all issues with him, African Union, what's he doing. So, yes, we love to speak, and the value of what we're doing is the ability to speak frankly. But what we ask our European friends is also to be able, genuinely able to discuss with us all these issues and accept that, I mean, I think I'm also European, okay, because I have a dual nationalities. I'm very concerned about what's going on in Europe. Democracy is embedded in Europe, and you guys don't realize that. So please, sort out your house as well. That's very important for us.
Okay. Your foundation's been going for 10 years now, just over 10 years.
Yes.
So you're getting a pretty good idea of where things are going in Africa. It was interesting to hear you, just before you gave the award to Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, say, I'm so happy to be able to give the award this year, not just because for the last 2 years I haven't been able to give the award because nobody suitable presented himself or herself, but because it's a she this year as well. How important, first of all, is it to you that you gave the award to a woman this year?
That's very important. We have been always extremely critical about the position of women in Africa. And we have been calling that a disgrace. The raping of women is almost a national habit in many countries, unacceptable. The way the girls are treated in schools, education. We are very critical of all these issues and all this nonsense. Yeah. Okay, we're critical of homophobia. I mean, the only guy going around in Africa shouting about the xenophobia concerning gay rights, for example. So we don't hesitate in criticizing whatever wrong, and we have to criticize to move forward. And of course, we're criticizing leadership in Africa because we are very disappointed about the lack of proper leadership in Africa, and very delighted when we find some good examples, we'll celebrate it. But if there is nobody deserves the prize, we stand up. How many years we stood up and say, okay, nobody's worth it. Yeah. So that is the spirit of what we're trying to do. We need to be honest, speak frankly, don't mince our words. That's what we need, honest discussions.
One of the things that Ellen Johnson Sirleaf said in her acceptance speech was that Africa is moving forward, that democracy effectively is on the march. Yeah. But is it really true? I mean, you look, there seem to me to be more Burundis, more Somalias than there are Ghanas or Liberias.
Okay, there are two sides here. You are absolutely right in one aspect, and I think a little bit wrong in something else. The pictures are a bit more nuanced, okay? We have about 6 or 7 countries which we have serious problems, okay? Somalia, South Sudan, Burundi, okay, you mentioned them. But actually we have 54 countries. So there are 48 countries which are quite fine, are quite peaceful. But because of the nature of the media and news reporting, you will not report in France 24 about what's going on in Botswana because it's boring. People go up in the morning, go to the, tend their cattle and come back home, have a cup of tea and go to sleep. There's no news to report. But there is exciting stuff going on in Somalia, exciting stuff going in Libya. The media, of course, reports exciting stuff. The picture we end up getting as recipients is that of war and chaos in Africa. When you actually reported on about only 4% of African countries, but that gives a wrong perception. And this is the problem of the media, and I appreciate why it is happening.
Yeah.
So, situation in Africa is much better. But as we said in our reports this year, we are worried about the stagnation in the development of governance in Africa. And we raised alarms 2 years or 3 years ago.
Yeah.
We said, hey, Africa made good strides, and unfortunately, things are stagnating.
One other question I wanted to ask you was about the way forward for Africa now, because I heard the Ghanaian president, Akufo-Addo, speaking at a reception for French President Emmanuel Macron last year, in which he said it's utterly important now for Africa to end its dependence on Western aid. Is that something you would agree with?
Absolutely. I think it's very important for Africa to realize aid must be a transient process to help it to move forward. Yeah. It doesn't become integral part of the budgets and the developments. We need to stand on our feet. Africa is rich. That's why we are focusing in really improving governance and leadership in Africa. And that's why I hope today Africa become a donor, not a recipient.
And that, I'm afraid, is where we have to end it. Thanks very much to our guest, Mo Ibrahim, for being with us on France 24. And thank you, the viewers, too, for watching us. Don't go away, though. There's more news to follow.